Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast, where we ask guests to tell us your story. Hello there. This is Dr. James W. Smith, your host. We seek to transform lives by encouraging and inspiring. Someone encouraged and inspired this host, a former lawyer, gambler, inmate, and his life was transformed. The same can happen to you. When you listen to any of the Deal by Me podcasts, please support this podcast with a donation or a monthly recurring amount for as little as $3. If you're viewing any of the podcasts on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. To supporters of this podcast, we say thank you. Check out my encouraging, inspiring, and transforming books. I'm available for speaking engagements, in person, and virtual seminars. So please contact me through my website, www.dealbyme.com. I have with me Matthew Sanjari, who had a life altering accident that derailed his career and life. He spent much of the next decade overcoming chronic pain, depression, and a disability to become a serial entrepreneur and transformative figure in the business world. I'm very grateful to have him. I'm excited to have him come and share with us today. Uh, Matthew, would you share with listeners of this podcast a little bit about yourself and where you've been interviewed from?
Yeah, first off, just thank you, Dr. James, for having me. It's an honor to be on.
Thank you.
So I'm coming at you today from Ottawa, Canada. I spent quite a bit of time in Florida as well, so kind of a split between Canada and Florida. To tell you a little bit about myself, I've worn many hats over the years, but I am, like you said, a serial entrepreneur. Ran a marketing company for 10 years and had a successful exit. Started a real estate development company as well, and now I'm into business coaching and strategic consulting, something that I absolutely love. And I also pastored on and off for about 14 years as well. So love working with people.
Okay, I heard you say something about, did I hear pastoring?
I did, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Well, we at least have that in common as we talk. I've just retired from pastoring 32 years at the same church. So that's interesting to know that as we begin our conversation. I am excited about uh, your profile, your bio, as I've read some of it, not in perhaps detail. So I want to just kind of go through it and have you to talk about it a little bit because you have had some interesting experiences. You've gone through a lot in your life. Uh, Life changing near death accident, 2012, which left you, battling chronic pain. And so, could you share a little more about your life changing accident and what you went through as a result of this? Because as we are talking and listeners are listening to this podcast, they always like to know a little bit about the guest in terms of their personal background.
Yeah, for sure. So if I can give your audience some context, I'm actually a first generation. So my father's a refugee, my mother's an immigrant. And so growing up, we had, I love my family, love my friends, but we were we were very familiar with hardship. My parents went through it, trying to make it, trying to provide. And so growing up, I had all the makings of a really strong support system and love my upbringing, but it definitely, I was exposed to a lot growing up in terms of people trying to make it, people trying to hustle,
Mhm.
well, people just surviving. And so in 2012, we were a couple of years into a church plant. We had planted a church, and I was dating somebody at the time, and she lived in the country. I was driving home from her house, and again, at this point, I've got a great job. I'm getting paid to travel across North America to do public speaking, and life was good. And that night, as I drove home, it was late at night, country road, houses are spread out. Two horses jumped out into the middle of the
Oh,
road
wow. Mm.
at the last second. Yeah. And I don't know about you, doctor, but I definitely didn't know anything about horses.
Hmm.
Turns out that they were Clydesdales, which are quite big, and they were bigger than my SUV. And basically, I had no time to react. And by the time that I actually understood what was happening, the car had
Hmm.
absorbed the impact, absolutely collapsed onto me. And when the smoke settled, I basically had to jam my way out. And so what they measured at the scene 3 inches, and I would have been gone. Three
Wow.
inches was the
Wow.
difference.
Hmm.
And so they took me to the hospital, and I did what I imagine every young, dumb 20-something-year-old male does, where they just think that their problems are going to go away and time will heal all. Well, time
Hmm.
will heal all. If anything, time revealed all.
Hmm.
And for me, I started to recognize, okay, not everything is okay. I started to battle some chronic pain throughout my body, things I had never felt. I started to get these headaches that I couldn't control. And when I'm talking headaches, I'm talking, these were incapacitating.
Hmm.
At, at times they can knock me out for days, weeks at time in bed. And it led to me quitting my job. It led me to taking a break from the church, from pastoring, all kinds of things. I basically felt like my life was on hold. And here I was
Hmm.
lying on my parents' floor, unable to work, unable to provide, unable to really feel like I was living the life that I was supposed to live. And I found myself just really upset, frustrated, and if I'm honest, pretty hopeless.
Wow. Matthew, what I don't know what to say. I'm sitting here just kind of listening to what you're saying, and you've really, really gone through something. But I'm also reminded of what happened to me and my grandfather, who was also a minister. And when you tell that story about the horses, it really brought something home to me. We were coming out of a little place called uh, South Boston and going into another little area called Virgin Atlanta. And the same thing happened at night. Some horses came right out in front of us, and we just didn't miss it by a hair. So when you said it, I knew exactly what you're talking about. I mean, it was amazing. We just knew it was over, but Lord just took care of us, and we made it through. But I felt that. I really felt that brought it home to me. Uh, we go through a lot of stuff in life, and somehow we do get through it. And it seems like your struggle, you know, to regain, normal life has been amazing, and you've obviously done a good job with it. You've started some businesses. Can you talk a little bit or share with the audience some of the businesses that you own and the type of business they are? They'll be interested in knowing that too. And then I want to get into something that you actually do now that will help other folks. And we'll get there. But I want to give some background, some context to the listeners of this podcast.
Yeah. So the first business I started that succeeded was a marketing company. I full disclosure didn't go to school for marketing, loved it, but didn't know much about it. Had never
Hmm.
worked in marketing per se. And so that was right after the accident, about a year in. And that business came out of survival. I needed to survive. I couldn't work a full-time job. I mean, it doesn't matter what my confidence level is or what I thought about my skills. Who's going to hire somebody that you don't know if they're going to show up to work?
Hmm.
Right. And so I started that company. And to be honest, for the first few years, it was abject failure. As quick as I was adding clients, I was losing them.
Hmm.
And I basically had to teach myself skills and systems, because I was like, I can't keep going like this. At this point, I'm in my late 20s, and I'm like, man, I want to get married one day. I want to have a family. I'm like, I got to be able to provide. I got to be able to create and take care. And it just felt like that was really, really hard. And so
Hmm.
built that marketing business, turned it around, had that, and then also, got into real estate development. So myself and one of my best friends started a company where we started acquiring properties and bringing on team members to renovate them and holding them. So investment rental properties, and then most recently, I've started a business coaching and strategic consulting where I help business owners, entrepreneurs, and anybody high performing basically reach their potential. I want to see people grow, scale, and actually leave nothing on the table. And all of that has really come out of not just my experience, but if I'm honest, it's things that I had to do to teach myself to get through hardship and to overcome and to be inspired that I couldn't just live in survival mode my whole life. I had dreams, I had things I wanted to accomplish. And if I didn't do something about it, things weren't going to change. And so I bring that into my business now and helping a lot of my clients, business owners, and entrepreneurs push through their limitations.
Well, I'm interested because you talked about your marketing and it was an abject failure. Is that because of you're not knowing anything about marketing, or it had more to do with your health and ability to get around to do what you wanted to do, or was it both?
Yeah, it wasn't not knowing marketing. I actually used my first client I ever got. I used the money that they paid me to invest in myself, to learn. I taught myself.
Okay.
So it wasn't that for me. And I tell people, I mean, look, that accident was 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
James, I am still struggling with the chronic pain. I still get the headaches. Many of my symptoms in so many ways have not changed. So I tell people my pain has not changed, but my perspective has.
I got you. I hear
And
you.
so and so in the marketing business, when I changed my perspective, one of the things I always ask my clients, and I just love asking people in general, I say, look, if God forbid something were to happen to you for the next month, what would happen to your business? What would
Mm-hmm.
happen to your life? And everybody kind of responds the same. They kind of get a little nervous, and then they think about it, and then they go, I don't think I'd have a business left.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, then you don't have a business, you have a job. Because if you don't show up to your job, you don't get paid. So
Mm-hmm.
let's build you a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn that for myself because when I have headaches and I'm knocked out for weeks at a time, hey, my clients may understand me, but they don't understand me, if you know what I mean.
I got you. I hear
And
you. Well,
and so in that, I had to say, well, I've got to build something that doesn't rely on me. And so my perspective had to change. It wasn't the Matthew Sanjari show anymore. It was, how do I build this marketing company? How do I build it so that, there's somebody there, or there's a system in place to catch clients' requests and make sure work gets done so that when things happen to you and life happens, because life happens to all of us, the basics can still go on. And
mm,
so it was that change in perspective that really helped me turn around what at the time felt like a failure into
mm-hmm.
a
Wow. You know, I, your life is amazing, and what you're doing is just amazing. Your story is compelling. I am a minister, and I retired from pastoring in December 2022. I'm now serving as an interim pastor at my home church. But when I retired, I wanted to start a podcast, and I've been doing this now a little over a year. Interviewing you probably be right at 150 podcasts that I've done. I've been over 10 countries, uh, and things are going well. But what I wanted to do was to kind of share uh, something that I thought would be encouraging, inspiring, and transforming, because there are so many people who just are going through something. And so my question to you, that if there are individuals who have gone through some of the same things that you've gone, maybe not as worse, because you have really endured quite a bit of suffering, and even now you say you pain you're dealing with. Uh, but it could be something else, depression, all kinds of issues that we face just in our daily uh, life, what we go through. From your own experience, what would you say to them that would be encouraging, inspiring, and hopefully transforming?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it's human nature. We all compare, right? We all want to say, oh, well, this is better or this is worse,
Hmm.
and I tell people, I say you don't have to hit two horses and go through trauma to have pain,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? You don't have to go through what I went through to experience change. We all have pain. We all have change. For me, regardless of pain and change, like everybody else, our lives go on. We all
Hmm.
have school, we all have jobs, we all have families. We've got to make money, put food on the table. And that's the what of life, right? The
Right.
what is working, the what is showing up, the what is living. But to me, I had to find my inspiration in something bigger than the what. I had to find my why. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why was I created? And until I actually zoned in on that, like again, I think everybody's got a why. For some
Hmm.
people, it's I want to make $10 million. For some people, it's I want to go on vacation.
Hmm.
And I'm not here to ruin people's parade, but your why has to be deeper and bigger than that. Because when you go through pain and when you have change and life's hitting you, life's coming at you, if your why isn't strong enough, you will cave and
Hmm.
you will give in to whatever's happening. And so for me, I encourage people find your why. What's your why? Is your why God? Is
Hmm.
your why your family? Is your why, man, I want to leave a legacy for the next generation? Because when you go through hardship, because it will happen, when you go through tough times,
Hmm.
horses or not, then you know what? That why that you remind yourself of, that you keep in remembrance, that's going to be where you say, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to keep going because my why is bigger than my what.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I want to push people to say, hey, know your why, understand your why, remember your why. And it's out of that we should live.
Why? Hmm. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Know your why. You know, why am I doing it? I love that. I just love that, Matthew. And I know that listeners to this podcast are going to take that to heart. That's very, very compelling. Um, you know, listeners, don't go in place. Hang right here. We got a couple more questions that we're gonna ask of Matthew. But right now, I want to ask Matthew if listeners of this podcast are interested in knowing more about you and whether you have a book, website, anything of that nature, would you mind sharing that with them at this time?
Yeah, no book yet, but you can go to my website, consultingbyprime.com. Consultingbyprime.com. I also just love connecting with people. So you can look me up on Instagram or on LinkedIn, Matthew Sanjari, Matthew Sanjari on Instagram or LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you.
Okay, thank you so very much for that information. Let me ask you another question as we bring this to a close because your profile is so very compelling. And I note that you are passionate about helping people brand themselves and perhaps their businesses. Tell us how you go about doing that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the biggest thing that I want people to realize is what we talked about. I want people to realize their why. And
Okay.
so it more than than building a brand, more than scaling a business, we have to figure out what that why is for the entrepreneur, the business owner, and what the why is for their business, why the business exists, because that's going to help us determine how we move forward, right? I could sit here and say, you could come to me and say, Matt, I've got a business, I need more clients. And I think the natural thing we'd all do is, well, you need more sales and you need more marketing, right? But if we sit down and understand your why, and maybe your why is, hey, I want to achieve this level of success, but I don't want to work 40 hours a week. I want to work 30 because I want to spend time with my family. Or I want to have boundaries so that this business isn't messaging me at 8 p.m. Right? I want to be with my friends or whatever. When we figure out the why, that's the framework on how to build. And
Right.
so when you ask a question like that, I say we need to go back to understanding the why, what success looks like, and then we can draw a map together that says, hey, this is the workflow or this is the map that'll take us from our why or where we're at to where we want to be. And so how we build that is oftentimes mindsets, so strategy. We often build that with structures, like I illustrated earlier, making sure that again, if I get knocked out or if something happens to me, this thing is bigger than me. It's going to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And so strategies, structures, and a lot of times the answer is also in systems. And I'm a big believer in systems because systems help us bring more people into the journey. People
Mm-hmm.
make light work, and more people we have, the greater we can grow because no matter how talented you are, how skilled you are, you can't do it all yourself. So
Wow.
there's just some of the ways we do it.
Okay. Very, very, very powerful. I I note from your profile something that was said that I thought was very interesting. And maybe you have already kind of elaborated on it a little, but I want to just say it and then maybe you can say something else. You made the statement or makes the statement that uh, we build people. When we build people, we build businesses. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
When we build people, we build business.
Yeah. Listen, I'm an incredibly relational person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in just transactional business or transactional life. And so for me, I think that it's important that we build people because people are the ones that are actually carrying out the work. People are the ones that are bringing the vision to life. People are also the ones that are consuming the services or the products or the things we offer
Mm-hmm.
and or the things we use. And so to me, the best way to impact your bottom line is to invest and build your people. I also just think that's a great life principle, right? Like the idea that you want to build into people because it's people that matter,
Mm-hmm.
right? Products, services, all these things are great, but they all actually came out of the hearts and the minds of people. And so it comes back to, hey, can we build people? Are we building people? Are we treating them well? Are we upskilling them? Are we giving
Mm-hmm.
them opportunities to shine and show leadership? There's so many business owners and leaders I talk to who say, I'm drowning, Matt, I'm exhausted, I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, well, have you given anybody else a shot in the organization at trying something or handling something?
Oh, okay. I hear
Right.
you.
And again, my background is, working in a church and ministry. Well, you know what? We didn't have the luxury of employing 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
So volunteers and people that wanted to serve. And to me, it's in that I'm like, why can't we apply that same logic here? There are people who who have great skills. There are people who have great attitudes. Let's give them opportunities to shine. Yes, they may fail, but that's
Mm-hmm.
life. Even
Okay.
if someone, if someone only I'm working with a client right now, and they said, I handed something off to somebody and they only got it 60% right. And I was like, they got it 60% right. That means that this time they can get it 70% right and
Mm-hmm.
80% right and 90% right. We've got a baseline. But they were so consumed by the 40% of failure that I said, no, 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 60% right. That's 60% you didn't have to do.
Mm. Well
So
said.
let's build people because they're actually going to build business.
Well said. I hear you well. Well, there you have it. Matthews and Jerry. I want you to know again how much I appreciate you being a guest on this podcast. And I'm certain that listeners of this podcast have truly enjoyed what you have had to share with us on this podcast. It's been very powerful and very, very interesting and intriguing. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me. It was just a great conversation.
And until next time, peace and blessings be with each of you.